Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the E-Tims podcast. My name is Desmond, and tonight I'm glad to say once again I am joined by the man in the van, Ralph. Ralph, how are you getting on? Ralph Mouth?
I'm doing fine. I'm just tackling this storm, and it's like driving a boat over big winds, big waves, big winds, big winds.
You're a true hero, Ralph. A nation salutes you. And across the water, not at his dinner tonight, I am also glad to say we are joined by Monty C. Burns. Good evening, Monty.
Good evening, Desi. Evening, lads.
Thanks for joining. And you may be wondering, folks, why I'm leaving him last, but obviously not least. But he has been out today, and he's apparently fighting for his dog. I'm glad to say we're joined by Hector Bandido. Good evening, Hector.
Good afternoon, evening, everyone.
Exactly, yes. Yes, it's afternoon up in the northern suburbs. I mean, you've been out in the afternoon and had a few. So for my friend James, who sits behind me at Celtic Park, we may have a ranting store or two. We'll just wait and see. We've just had a half an hour pre-podcast chat in the state of Scottish independence. So we should have really recorded that, and that could have helped some people smile here and there. But anyway, we're here to talk about Celtic from the last time we had the podcast. Well, Hector shows us his lovely dog on the webcam. And what we've got to cover is quite a few games, but especially last night's game. But I'll start with Hector. Let's go back to the resident tactician. We'll have a quick summary, right? Basically, Since the last time we chatted, the Huns podcast, we played away to Aberdeen and we won 3-2. Good start, then we seemed to ease off and eventually get the win in the end, which was good. Then we played Motherwell and won 4-0 with a lovely 3-0 half-time. And again, just kind of took our foot off the gas in the second half. Then we played Raith Rovers, and it was kind of a wee bit the opposite. We weren't really in the game. We weren't really trying that much with a kind of changed squad, but then came in and won 4-0 by the time Jota and that came on to change the game. So how did you enjoy those 3 games up until, again, 11 goals, etc., up until last night's game?
I think the first one was after we beat them. 3-0 was Motherwell, and it was 4-0, and they were great. The first half, 3-0 at half-time. I made a couple of subs, and it was a convincing performance at what sometimes for us can be a really hard venue. Great 3 points in the bag. They went to Aberdeen. First half was coasting 2-0. Aberdeen, to be fair to them, although they've sacked the manager since, I think they changed the tactics, and I actually thought they bullied us for about a large part of that second half. They got us quickly to 2 each. We got a very quick third goal after they made it 2 each. But we weren't convincing that second half. We looked a bit dodgy. Raith Rovers at the Scottish Cup, we were rubbish the first half, really poor. In fact, it wasn't until Jota came on afterwards at 60 minutes. Then we started to play our game, and he sort of changed the game, although he made a lot of changes, Ange. And he criticised the team a lot, rightly so, I think, after that game. Then last night was Bodø Glimt, and the Bodø Glimt last night was a weird one.
Let's end it. Like, what was your expectations before the Bodø Glimt? Because I'll go back to Monty and Ralph.
I was expecting to see more of the same, and what I mean by that is sort of high energy, high press for the first minute, and it didn't. The first half, although it was only 1.5 time, but we were actually back at the halfway line. I was thinking, where's the probably not just me, but it's Angie's tactics, right? It's to press high energy. And he did the opposite. There was nothing like the away against Rangers at Celtic Park. It was you draw just O'Reilly. We'll come to the kind of the nuances about it. But my point was this though. My point was there was no press. There was zero. We were back at the halfway, and it was nothing like how I expected us to play. So that was results. It's all about results. It's disappointing, but it was more about the setup and how we played. The tactics, I think, were quite disappointing last night.
Yeah, can I just say I'm really shocked by what you just said there. I can't believe you never mentioned Beaton scoring against Raith Rovers.
Probably the best penalty ever.
I mean, you've got a tattoo. You've got a tattoo now, apparently.
It wasn't just a penalty. It was the fact 1-2 with the keeper. Then he dinked it off the grass over the keeper. I mean, that was just class.
Aye, I'm sure everyone out there was listening was picturing you enjoying that goal. Talking about enjoying goals, Monty. Scales scored a cracker against Raith. I know you're a big fan. There's a player in there somewhere.
Oh, there's a player there, all right. I think I said that after we signed him. It was just as well he did, because up to that point I thought we were rank rotten. Mm-hmm. It was probably the only thing of note that the team did up to that point. I think the Raith game was just one of those games you just needed to get through. It's interesting listening to Hector's sort of summary of the games that we played up to last night. There's an obvious tailing off happening here. Either energy or just something. And every team gets that. Every team gets those wee lulls, and then you come back. And I think in the last podcast we talked about how Ange builds his teams to peak towards the end of the season. And I'm wondering, are we seeing a little bit of that creeping in? Well, we're still getting or eking out results. He's starting to rotate the squad. I know we'll talk about last night, that maybe not the cleverest rotation of it. But yeah, Scales hasn't done anything wrong when he's been given a game. Yeah. And, you know, Taylor, the Rangers game I thought was outstanding. He's just, Taylor's Taylor. Mm-hmm. So Scales is probably just another guy of that level. So why not give him a chance and see? Because he's better physically than him. He seems to have a bit more pace than him. Probably not as fit as Taylor yet, because it's his first year in full proper professional football. But good to see him. Anytime I've seen him play, he hasn't done anything wrong. But he's not the type of player that's ever going to make a sit up and go, fuck, this boy needs to start next week. Mm-hmm. But good to see him get the game.
It was. Ralph, can you hear me okay? One thing I did want to highlight was in the Raith game we did have something that you and I thought we would never see again. We did have Big Julian on the pitch in a Celtic strip in an actual Celtic game. Not that he done much, to be fair, but it was just to see.
It kind of surprised me, but I think it was just more down to giving everybody else a bit of a rest. The fact that he came on in that game, as opposed to starting it, just shows how far down the pecking order that he is. And I don't think we'll see him again.
Julian?
I think it was just a case that I think he's maybe just reminding other teams that he still plays for us, that he's still there, and if you want him, you can come and get him.
He ran past me last night on the way to do we kind of warm up as the subs are kind of do their stretches and stuff. Oh, and you'd think it was like minus 20, honestly, the way it was like an old woman kind of walking to this coal scuttle. Unbelievable. But Ralph, I had something else to raise with you, and that was Angie's rant in the Raith game, where I think that was the first public display of this is not going how I want it to go.
Temper. Yeah, we're kind of aware he's got a bit of a temper and he shouts at people off the pitch, and he'll maybe. He described himself actually as a cranky old 56-year-old the other day, and he said he doesn't go into the dressing room before games. He wants to let the players sort all that out and get themselves ready. And I have a feeling that the kind of genial public face of him, you know, the maybe even joking a wee bit sometimes, I don't think that's anything what he's like behind closed doors. And to see him lose his rag a wee bit against Raith, of all teams, Raith Rovers, in a cup game, to see him lose his rag, he goes back to that article I picked up on for the guy that used to be the captain of Brisbane Roar. If you do what he tells you, he'll be fine with you. But if you don't, you're going to get it in the neck. And he's only 6 months in, so he's not maybe stamped it yet. He's not maybe quite got the authority that a Steen or a Rodgers had. But he's getting there. He's getting there. And I think
Can I just say, just on Ralph's point, it's interesting because there was one or two interviews this week, and he that was brought up in the conversation, and he made the point about the dressing room, and you know, not getting in there. It's the players' domain, and he's done all his work up to the match, and they control that. But he also, I don't know if it's picked up, but he made the point that additionally that he can't get too close to players. He can't afford to have his favourites, which we've always, for years and years, different coaches at Celtic, managers at Celtic, there's always a manager going, he's his favourite, he's basically made the point that in his role as manager, because they're always looking to improve the team, every position, ultimately, it's always an improvement. It's got to be, right? But he said, in effect, I can't get too close. I've got to keep that gap, because ultimately I'm looking to replace with a better player every position at some point. And if you get too close to someone, build that close relationship, it does impact your decision making. So the fact he said that was fascinating to hear him actually, a lot of folk didn't pick up on that. It was interesting. I thought they would have done. But the fact he said that, it was a good thing, in my opinion, to hear him saying that.
Yeah, I think it was Matt O'Reilly. I think it was him. They asked him after one of the games or something, and with the manager, you really sit with the manager, blah, blah, blah. So I have to sit down and have a good chat. And he went, well, he doesn't say much to us, like before and after the game. This is like last week or the other week. And he's like, all the talking's done during the week. Kind of thing. It's like he and Ange also said, like, he refers to himself as the coach, so to speak. He's like, my job is to coach them and give them the instructions during the week and to make sure the instructions go in and they understand. So by the time it comes to a Saturday at theatre, 2:30, he's not needing in the dressing room. He said, I've got other jobs to do. They know by that time they know exactly what their job is. The physio knows exactly what his job is, get him ready to go in the park, etc. No, that sort of way. So it's all kind of regimented and segmented, and there's no kind of fuzzy lines of, as you say, that I wouldn't imagine there's too many arms around the shoulder, but I'm just thinking the other side of that is you've got his hug with Kyogo, remember, in the League Cup final. And that, so come to Monty, because Monty's were resident kind of professional, as in like business professional. I'm just writing here like Ed De Bono's hats. How many hats do you think Ange wears? Or do you think he just delegates? So again, like maybe this might be one of the cases, Monty, where we identify maybe a role that John Kennedy does. Like we just assume he's a first team coach who puts the cones out, but maybe he is the player liaison guy. He's a friendly arm around the shoulder guy during the week, whereas Ange is understanding what I'm fucking telling you kind of guy.
It's hard to know what sort of dynamic, because he didn't bring any of his own team with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we all looked at the failings of last season, and one of the root causes of that was obviously that Neil Lennon couldn't bring his own team with him to do those types of roles. I don't think Postecoglou's setup requires that. I think it's one of those. I mind reading a book on Australia's the kind of nucleus of high performing culture, especially in sport.
No, science, yeah.
The notion of sports science and how you drive an athlete and how you psychologically do that as much as physically. And I think Postecoglou's brought a lot of that. Now, Rodgers would have had that, but he had his own Brent style achieve or aspire, whatever it was. Remember can any of you remember what that was? He had an acronym. It was a one-word thing up on the wall.
Let me go. While we're talking, I'll go and see if I can find it.
And it was something like aspire, or I can't remember it. And it'll come to me probably later on. Anyway, it's the same concept. Rodgers just put his own polish and his own brand on it. Aspire stood for, fucking achieve. S for surety. P for professional, whatever it was. I think Postecoglou has brought just a pure ethos of living and breathing that. This is what we do. This is what's expected of you. These are the behaviours that I expect, and these are the metrics that I'm going to measure you by. And by the way, John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan and Big Mick McManus, they're going to do all the day-to-day coaching, and I'm going to turn up every now and again. And if I don't see those behaviours, and if I can't measure you on those metrics, then you're not doing the job that I'm asking you to do. So if you need anything, the door's open, but fuck off and go and do your job, I think is his style. And it's very much grounded in that Australian direct empowerment, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it is culture. And didn't they just get rid of their cricket manager who just won them fucking multiple things in the Ashes? And they got rid of him because the players said he was too direct. He was too on the bum. And this guy now, I think, is going to be poached by England cricket for exactly those same reasons that I just outlined. High-performing culture, behaviours and metrics. So in that world, there is nobody. There is no go-to guy. There's no... Who was the Terry McDermott used to tell the jokes?
Yeah,
for fuck's sake.
Team Team social.
Team
social
social
manager.
There is none of that. And I think that is what will differentiate us as we move forward through this. The culture seems to have been bought into by everyone, including the coaching staff. And McGregor made a comment last night. We'll talk about it later, but I'll throw it in for now. In McGregor's interview, he said what I would have expected the manager to say. We were naive at the point at which we just scored a goal. Showed too much naivety at this level, and we'll get punished for it. And that was coming from the captain. That's what I was expecting Postecoglou to say after the match. So I think, Desi, culturally, there's no wingman, there's no buddy. This is the way we live and breathe. And it's Rodgers again, but maybe with just a little less of the oil.
Yeah. It will be, I've seen quite a lot of talk. I think, to be honest, like this is coming off the back of our Huns Scale Part and Tribute podcast. So for it to take 2 weeks for me to come out and say things like, I think Ange gets quite an easy ride at this point, but he's earned the right, I think, to be brutally fair. He's got his top of the league, and that's the only thing that matters. I think we're all agreed on that. I don't think anyone here or in the wider scheme of people who might be listening really care about the Europa Conference League. David, do we care?
Can I just throw two reasonable pseudo celebs but big fans of the podcast? Willie Hockey turned it off. He said, fuck that, I'm not watching that. And Roger had a whole soliloquy on why he wouldn't be going anywhere near it, because for him it was the ultimate in downsizing of expectations. So the notion of European ambition and where European ambition sits for us set against the league are two very, very interesting variables right now, because, Hector convinced me that this journey would be a good journey to go on. And I'm still there, by the way. I don't think we're out, and we'll talk about it. But I think if all we're ever doing is measuring ourselves by winning the league, then I don't really think we'll keep Ange.
Okay, so let me rephrase that then in a business parlance, in a project parlance. The next key milestone is the league. It is not the Europa. It is not progressing in a competition like the Europa Conference. It may be progressing in a competition like the Champions League or even the Europa League. Let's be realistic here. But the next big milestone is the league. That would be the one. Right, so bring it back to Hector. Right, so we concentrate on last night's game. Hector, heading up to the park. What was your say? Because again, this to let everyone know who's listening, this is one of those rare times where Hector and I actually seem to agree on a performance, and we were both in the stadium and had a kind of direct watch of the game. Whereas Monty, you and Rich seem to have a lot more kind of positive take. I was reading from our WhatsApp group of what you witnessed. Yeah. So it was quite a kind of two sides of a coin. Hector and I were basically, we were terrible. I think my words were, we were shite. And you guys were basically, they'll never play as good as they did again. We can still take them. So I was really. We'll start with Hector. I'll start with Hector. So Hector, heading up to the ground last night for the actual game. How optimistic were you, and do you think you were complacent? Because I think there was a massive error complacency for this time.
So before the game, my two boys and my pal and his two boys, they're no beings, all that. They're like young adults, and they were talking about obviously a few drinks, talking about the game. And as you do, we're saying, what do you think tonight will go? Obviously, Ange, the team's saying great, pumped to Huns, blah, 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 blah. It was interesting. So I said, what's the predictions? And genuinely, one of my boys said 5-0 Celtic. Right? He's 16, my other boy, he's older than that. He said 6-1 Celtic. And I looked at the two of them, and I just thought, really?
How drunk were they?
Really? No, really, right. Really. And I said, I think there'd be goals. I thought we'd win. I thought it'd be something like 4-2. Right? I think they'll definitely score against us. But don't underestimate psychology with them being this pre-season, blah, blah, blah. I said, I think we'll win 4-2. So I thought we'd win. First 5-10 minutes, we actually missed an absolute sitter. It was a great ball across by Maeda. And usually Abada picks it out, but he just stepped back rather than step forward. It was a tap in for 1-0. But that's by the by. people. I seen a guy last night. Look at the stats. Celtic's possession 65%. I tried to explain, but of that 65%, probably half of that was passing it between Carter Vickers and Starfelt and the fullbacks, and we actually played. Our possession was how Bodø Glimt wanted us to keep possession. It was in front of them, playing it across side to side to side to side. So that's something that will never worry you, right? So cut long story short, they deserved their win. I actually thought they outplayed us at our game. Very similar setup to us, but they outplayed us. Did we play badly? No, really. I just thought one or two did. We're also naive. Also, our tactics were poor. I thought the first half in particular, we didn't press. We actually brought them onto the halfway line, and I thought, why are we doing this? This is actually the opposite of what Ange tends to do. It was alien to the team. So you Drogic and O'Reilly and McGregor. McGregor tends to sit at 6. The other two are 8 and 10. But the three were almost in a line at the halfway line far too often in the first half. It made it easy for them. And I just felt disappointed. And ultimately, Ange gets a lot of credit from us. The last podcast example of that. He gets some criticism last night because he sets the team up, his coaches. And to sit back against a team like that in the first half, we're all scratching our heads going, what he's doing? And the fans of the stadium were all scratching their heads going, what are we actually doing here? So that was wrong. I thought Jota had a really poor game. He's been very inconsistent recently. Very inconsistent. One against Raith Rovers changed the game. I thought against Rangers it was terrible, and yet we pumped him 3-0. Taylor's Taylor. You know my thoughts on Taylor. I won't go there much more. He was great against Rangers. He set the standard, but then he dipped back again to what he's shown, I think, for most of his career. I thought him and Starfelt as a left-sided defensive partnership are abysmal. You know, that's not going to change, right? Rogic and O'Reilly, it looks like one of them rather than two of them at that level, I think. And don't be wrong, SPL domestically, of course you can play the two of them. Against a team, I level up for that. I think you can do that. Did a lot of things wrong, but interestingly enough, left the ground, we get beat 3-1, and I thought to myself, we've played poorly tonight, they've played well, but we could still win this. And just to be clear on this one, it's not through sunny, optimistic eyes. It's just general observation. We could go there and beat them 3-1 or 4-2 or whatever. But at the same time, Celtic being Celtic with Ange, we could lose the next game next week 3-1 or 4-2. It's so hard to predict, especially in Europe, who's going to turn up. Because who was it, Desi, last night? There's a guy that we follow. Is it Moravchik67?
Yeah.
A tweet out about we're losing in Europe on average 3 goals a game in Europe.
We've no won a playoff tie since 2004. So I was thinking there's 18-year-olds out there. There's people celebrating their 18th.
But how can you possibly?
What do you want for your birthday, son? Can you win a playoff game?
How can you possibly progress, right? If on average you're losing 3 goals a game, it just common sense tells you can't. But at the same time, can we get through next week? Weirdly enough, if we play our A game, of course we can. But I think naivety defensively as a team, not just the defenders, as a team defensively, and I think Ange as well. Come on, let's pick our game up. But right. I would say one final thing. What's my sort of diatribe? Right? One final thing would be is that sometimes as a team, losing can be a good thing, and some folk might go, "Oh, fucking shut up," but I think there's been such a good run recently that a lot of the media, the positivity, you can start to believe your own hype.
Yeah.
And possibly one or two, including the fans, we're this, we're that. Do you know what? We're not quite this, we're not quite that. Let's get back to basics. And Ange, of all people, I think, will make sure the players know what he expects. So it could turn out a good thing. Yeah,
on the Cooper-Ross scale, I'm looking at this as acceptance, as in of all the games to lose, I'm quite happy to accept this one, right? But I'll jump up to Ralph at the moment. Ralph, I don't know, did you hear the lineup before the game? Were you surprised to hear O'Reilly and Rogic starting?
I was surprised we'd get 3. There was three guys with left feet in the midfield. After, if we had 3 guys with right feet, we'd be whinging about the left not being covered properly. So that was a surprise. I kind of thought that Giacomakis would have got a game, but Maeda, a very underrated player, and like when he scored, it was so simple in the end. And I think that was what it was for me. You know, when we're talking about we can still win this, we can still do that. It seemed like all the passes were underhit or overhit. It seemed like when we did get a decent ball through, the forward went just a wee bit too quickly. And at this level, those are fine lines. Those are fine lines that cost you games. To go back to what we're saying, we can't afford to keep losing 3 goals at any level. And what I noticed last night was, Celtic supporters always want to look for a scapegoat. And I think Joe Hart's getting away with an awful lot in that respect. Because last night he was hesitating when he got the ball. He was allowing them to come forward, allowing the press, instead of getting rid of it quickly, which was the way the Barkas used to do it. So he was holding on to it and sussing his options, and that meant they could come a wee bit further forward. They could be a wee bit more adventurous.
Ralph, give me a second. That's really interesting you say that. It's really interesting because Monty made a cracking face, which I really wish people would be able to see on the webcam there. But no, that's really interesting you say it, because I was sitting with old John next to me, and as soon as Hart gets the ball, right, the ball boy's lined up with a ball in his hands to get to Hart straight away to start the counter attack. And I don't know if this came across in the TV, right, because of the camera angles, but I'm sitting in the main stand looking right across. I've got the full kind of wide peripheral between Hart and the halfway line, and I watched Abada consistently run, right? And like my brother used to play professional football, and he used to say he played for even Brecon, and when Brecon used to get the keeper get the ball, the left winger knew it immediately to just run, and the keeper would launch it. This was all kind of programmed in. Yeah. I watched last night. Abada ran straight towards their defender. He didn't run away from the defender. He ran straight towards where the defender was. The defender's covering a position on the halfway line. Abada wasn't running to the touchline or getting away from the guy. So Hart didn't have anywhere to immediately launch it. So he was kind of like, where am I meant to put this? And then suddenly we're back to that, rolling it out 5 yards sideways. And that probably, I think, leads to your frustration, because it was honestly, there wasn't an option. Jota wasn't an option and Abada wasn't an option. You're 2 guys who are meant to be up to 30 yards up the park.
That is the difference between watching on the TV and watching at the ground, because you can see what's going on, obviously from a wider perspective. But to me, it just looked like Hart was taking a free kick and wait to see who made a move. And these kind of things, it just needs to be out of there quicker.
Yeah, I think a lot of it...
That's what I felt at the time. But if that's the case, he's got nowhere to put it, then that's a fundamental breakdown in the plan.
I think a lot of it wasn't so much that, we didn't really turn up or we didn't bring an A game and all that great stuff. I think they were just unbelievably well set up last night. I think their defensive structure, I mentioned it in our WhatsApp. If you watch some of the clips back, the way that they set up, it was almost like 2 banks of 5 in front of their keeper. There was there was 2 guys. They played in. It's incredible. It's almost like they played in eighths, in like an eighth of a width of the, an eighth of a dimension of the pitch. And within that space, you had 6 players. You had 2 guys pivoting at the back. You had 2 guys in the middle of that and 2 at the front. And that channel was blocked. And then the minute we shuffled the ball to the right, if you're looking at it face on, they just seemed to move that extra player over as well. So it became incredibly difficult for us to try and find anything. But they also did it in their shape on pressing us. So in Hart's defence, when I was watching that, I had a bit of an eyebrow up too. I have to say, Ralph, going, fuck, we're normally something better at getting out and getting quicker. It's nothing to do. I don't think it was anything to do with Hart, nor I don't think it was it to do with the endeavour of the players. I think Bodø just had us fucking nailed. They just set
What
up
I'm saying is,
brilliantly.
the longer he held on to the ball, the more they could come forward, and the more it became difficult for him to do anything with
But
it.
it didn't make any difference, because even if he'd have played it early, if in that example that Desi talked about, if he gives it to Abada early, Abada doesn't have his natural angles or his natural support around him because they're already in place.
We had one.
Of a pitch, the way they moved those 6 bodies around in an eighth of the pitch in a defensive structure, we couldn't lay a fucking glove on them. Now, that said, you get an early goal against that, game on. But I think it's a plastic pitch. It's going to be that same structure. They're going to be a week fitter. And they wear that fucking same kit as Livingston, so they feel jinxed. but I think we can do it. But it's going to be it's the first time I've seen Postecoglou stand on. And by the way, watch his facial expression after the third goal.
Yeah,
The old eyebrows go up to the top of the head going, that one
I
coming.
saw that.
I think it's the
other
first
thing
time
is, Robert,
he's been really tested. I think it's the first time his system has been really tested since he came to Celtic. And I include Leverkusen and Bettison.
Oh, that
there's
was
a
a
couple of
good.
things there. Because first of all, he's come from Asian football. I don't watch a lot of it. I don't know how it works at the highest level, but it might be a wee bit more open. It's certainly a lot less money orientated and so on. So there might still be people playing at the high level there, playing for the love of the game, and therefore you can get away with being a wee bit open at the back and knowing that you'll maybe score more goals than them. The cynicism of European football is maybe something new to him. So how he adapts to it and how he deals with it is an entirely new thing. It's a new thing for him as well.
Can we stop getting Ange easy, right? Can we stop getting Ange easy?
No, wait now. I'm not giving him
an
right.
I think it's the first time he just came in on.
Just as he's putting a new team together, it's a new experience for him.
Right.
Come on, he fuck.
Right,
Right. He played Betis and
Ralph,
Leverkusen are far
Ralph.
better than fucking Bodø.
Ralph.
Right, come on.
But this is Hector. You came in on the tail end of it. Neither Betis nor Leverkusen set up in a way that completely stifled his system. Fucking Bodø did a number on us last night. Absolutely.
Leverkusen beat his
Leverkusen were laughing, smoking cigars.
And I think we had a much easier game against Leverkusen. We could have scored 3 or 4 assists.
Oh, remember Leverkusen?
No, but they could have scored 8.
Yeah,
They could have scored 8
Sorry,
goals against us.
Leverkusen came out after the game and said, we knew they were going to play 2 inverted fullbacks, so we just put 2 guys in the middle and told them to pivot with the ball and put it over the top. And there was a couple of times right in front of me last night, their winger just stood in the halfway line. That's what Hector says. He doesn't understand why we did that. We set up with that, and he just basically said, launch it right over Taylor's head. or Juranovic, who had a good first half. So Juranovic try to get it over his head, so just to get right in behind. So a good coach is obviously looking at the opposition. So my next question to you, Hector, is: do you think Ange, looking at that game last night, do you think Anne's actually prepared for that opposition? Because like that team were strong, athletic, supremely drilled, as Morty said. I don't know if Anne's actually prepared his game against them. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean.
I think he did. I think he prepared. This is the thing with Ange. Can we just be clear here before you just imagine 1 or 2 people furiously fucking typing tweets to us going, how dare you criticise? We're no saying that. What we're actually saying is the job that Anne's inherited, he's done a fabulous job to get us where we are, right? But rather than see everything as great, right, and everything's wonderful, even when you get pumped, which is daft, what we're trying to say is, look, we could do better at certain things. And I felt that last night with Ange, he set the team up wrongly. I actually felt as if he gave them too much respect, right? For example, the first half in particular, we're stepped back at our halfway line against a team who are nowhere near as good as Betis or Leverkusen on the halfway fucking line the first half. And we're all looking at each other. We looked in the game, in the stadium, look at each other, right? We're going, what are we doing here? Because we're watching Ange's team. No, but hold on, can I just finish my point? But we're watching Ange and his team develop. And you know, they get through it. With any new team developing, new system, new shape, new way of playing, there's things that go wrong at times. Most of us understand that. There's 1 or 2 dafties don't. They'll never get it right. But the thing was, we're watching the first half last night, and you've got Callum McGregor, you've got O'Reilly and Tam Rogic, in effect, sitting back at the halfway line for far too much of the first half. We're all going, But Ange doesn't play like that. So he's got to have made a tactical decision to perhaps do that, bring them up to us, and then using the pace, kick in to their half of the field, rather than play to your strength, which is pressing them high. And the few times they did press them high in the first half, we actually caused them problems. So for me, Ange deserves every praise, as we've done in previous podcasts. So much praise. But at the same time, see when things go wrong and things that just we see as basic things. Come on, what the fuck? And by the way, could I just add, I think Ange, based on what he talks about, is probably his biggest self-critic. I've got no doubt today at Celtic Park or Lennoxtown, he'll be going through things with the team. He'll be talking to his fellow coaches saying, look, we can fucking think, our setup was fucking wrong here, right? And he'll learn lessons for that. But we can't deny what we've seen in front of us last night, which was pretty poor, right? Weren't they playing against an A-level team here? A good team, a well-organised team, but we made their job far too easy last night.
I disagree on one level with all of that, which is I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I don't think we changed significantly how we set up to match the opposition. I don't think that's what Ange does. It's our system. This is our way of playing. Maybe a slight tweak.
So why did we sit so deep in the first half?
I don't think they allowed us to get into position. And I mentioned this he came in on the tail end of it. I watched a couple of times as we were trying, in that second half when we got it, just before we got it back.
Not the second half, sorry, the first half.
Sorry,
the first half
even in the first half. The way it was obvious to me in the second half in a way it wasn't in the first half. They played, you play games in half the pitch or a quarter of the pitch. Remember Kenny Shields? Remember that fucking Egypt took Kilmarnock for a while? He used to talk about them doing drills in a quarter of the pitch, and that's how they learned how to press and move as a unit. Bodø set up with 2 banks of 5. If you watch it, it's almost like an interchangeable guy to make it 6, right? And it was like an eighth of the pitch. And they moved brilliantly in sequence and in synchronicity across the pitch with the ball. So we never got a chance to get into position and then play the angles and the runoff that we normally do.
Really?
I genuinely watched the second half and watched
the first half. I keep saying the first half.
But no, I'm saying
the first half set the rest of the game.
I don't think we got to impose our game on them. And someone made the point, you see the goal that they scored in the 6th minute? They had the exact same move 3 minutes earlier and should have scored from it.
That big left back ran riot in the first half.
Yeah.
He couldn't use his left foot.
I know, exactly.
They set up against us. I don't believe we hammered their hammer as such. We didn't counter them. We came out thinking that our system was just going to dominate.
But we didn't play our system, that's my point. We didn't play the system that Anne's been reinforcing against. No matter who we play the same way, and he didn't do that in the first half last night.
Well, then I believe that's a
do you think that might be down to a wee bit of doubt in the players? Do you think they might have thought, hold on, this isn't working just now? Because we're being what?
Ralph, it looked like the shape.
No, you're right. We didn't set up right. But perhaps they thought, well, it'll be okay. We can trust them. And then the doubt creeps in.
But is it as basic as the fact that
under Rodgers, no, all right, there's not maybe so many players there from that era. We used to play our own way then and get absolutely hammered. And maybe there's that wee bit of doubt in the likes of McGregor's mind.
But is it as basic as Rogic and Riley together, who are both good players, by the way, but as a balance? Was it as basic as that being wrong that caused the whole midfield to not be right?
Hector, I don't know if you noticed, and I don't know if this would have been covered on. Is this again my pitch side view? At one point very early on in the first half, McGregor and O'Reilly end up standing together in the halfway line, or standing round about the halfway line, with the two of them discussing where they're meant to be. So it looked to me as if either this was a last minute gamble that Ange just suddenly sprung on them. That didn't seem to be a lineup that they'd planned all week. No, that sort of, again, this might be my naivety that we assumed the preparations going all week that, okay, we're playing Bobo Glimt, this is how we're going to line up. Monty, this is your job. Hector, this is your job. Ralph, this is your role. Be wary of this opponent, etc. We just seem to go in and go, we're going to play those two big striding midfielders because we expect we'll be able to run with the ball. and they were big, strong, athletic guys who could cover the pitch without any issue. When you seen Rogic get bundled, like Rogic tried to do a turn and run and the big guy just shouldered them right off and into the turf. And Rogic had that look of the wee boy in the playground, like Mister, gonna no hurt me. And I was just like, oh, we're not prepared for this whatsoever.
Can I make a point just to Monty and to Ralph, and it's not criticism. It's just based upon the fact that when you're at a match, the TVs get certain angles, right? And when you follow the TV, you see certain things, right? So I'm on the upper deck, the lower part of the upper deck, so I'm just above the green again. So you get a good view of the pitch. Maybe the TV doesn't show you this much, because I've not watched the game back, obviously, right? But when you watch it, especially in the first half, we're so deep. You've actually got Maeda trying to press almost in his own so much, right? You've got Jota and Abadi who tried their best. Rogic, who should pick up their 6 and press on him. There's him, Riley McGregor, almost the 3 of them back at the halfway line. Not all the time, but so often. And it looked as if the balance just wasn't right. The point I'm trying to make is this, right? We played Rangers recently. You had O'Reilly kind of 10. You had Hatate 8. And 8, as you know, covers everywhere, ground everywhere, right? And McGregor being 6. It just looked like the balance wasn't right, as if there wasn't something that was quite right at the balance of the team that caused that
My question was going to be similar to Ralph's. Do we think maybe Hatate's been injured this week, or maybe no fully fit? Have we get any idea why he would have been dropped for O'Reilly and Rogic in their first game, McGirra in such a game, or do we think it was just an Ange curveball?
An Ange curveball. He was pish at Pittodrie and pish against Raith Rovers.
He was tired. He was waning.
No, but let's be honest. He wasn't good.
Waning.
And anyway, it's not. That's just life. He's a guy just coming in, and Ange just maybe thought he probably looks at training, and I would imagine he reinforces training. You must give 100% in training. The guys that put it in get a start, and O'Reilly's probably been flying. He loves Rogic. Rogic's been great most of the time, but that balance didn't work. It could be as simple as that, by the way. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Physicality. You got a 6'2" guy going in versus a 5'7" guy. They're a big, strong team. You add all this up, and I think Hector's hit the nail on the head. They've talked about as well the intensity at training at Celtic is 100 mile an hour, on the basis that when it comes to match day, you're not going to be pressed to that level, so it becomes comfortable for you when you are pressed. So I think if you look at that minor dip in form, it all does point to, explainers as to why last night happened. I think personnel changes, probably a curveball from the manager, didn't really work. We're not out of it, but it's going to be very difficult. It'll be very disappointing to go out to them, especially given where they are in their season. Like, they're not fit yet. But then again, they're a really, really good team. And they've had 3 weeks to prepare for this match.
But one or two guys, sorry, Monty, but one or two guys, and this is just football, right? One or two guys were poor, right? Jota's been great this season, but Jota was poor last night. He was poor against Rangers. He came on after 6 minutes against Raith Rovers, right? He was the best player on the pitch the last half hour. But Jota was so poor last night in terms of his final touch, his crossing was so poor. That happens. It just happens in football sometimes. So if you get 2 or 3 guys who just, for whatever reason, on their game against a well-organised, disciplined, good team, right? It can happen. It's not like you playing against a team in the SPL where 9 times out of 10 you get away with it. A team like that, they punished us, right?
Right.
And that's football, right?
Right. Looking at it from that straightforward, I don't want to say simplistic point of view, but is there any explanation why we didn't have any zip whatsoever about the team? We just looked lacklustre, especially that first half. When the game was lost in the first half, let's be honest, they just professionally managed. See, when I was walking down to the car after the game, and you heard all these people moaning about, they were crap, doing all the kind of fake injuries and the huddle and all that, and I'm going, that's professional football. Well, we salute our guys in the exact same. I couldn't care less about that. It's us we've got to worry about. And I just done, as you say, Hector, regards playing our own game, but we didn't even play to the same level. We were just as if we were out of sorts all over. So that's why I was kind of wondering about, like, Hatate maybe being a little bit injured or unfit, or there maybe been a wee kind of strain or man flu going about the place or something, because it all just seemed a wee bit kind of.
But Daisy goals.
Puffy.
I know it sounds fucking. It is simplistic because sometimes we overthink. I'm a guilty as MD of overthinking things, right? But goals change games. So the first 5 minutes, Maeda put is a lovely pass to me, cut inside the kind of right side of the defence, squared it across the 6-yard box, and Abada, who's normally brilliant, rather than step forward, he actually held back, or cut back, and it was a tap-in, normally a tap-in. And then literally the next 60 seconds or so, they went up the park and scored. Goals change games. I know it's simplistic, but they change games. We didn't react to that, and it probably put us in the back foot a wee bit, or a big bit. But at the same time, somebody eating a big fucking munchie box of chocolate.
Ralph eating a roll and chips.
No, just having a sweetie.
You're allowed to go.
You might fucking put me on then, you daft cunt, rather than you eating a munch of fucking munchies. But I would get. Listen, we deserve. That's us being honest. Let's not do what others do. If we didn't do too good, we criticise, but try and make it constructive criticism, right? Rather than he, shite, she, or whatever, right? We didn't do things too well last night at times. Ange's been great. 1 or 2 guys off for him. However, what I would say is this: I left the ground last night. My 2 boys are giving it that's us out. In a weird way, I think we could beat them over there by 2 goals. However, could we lose by 2 goals over there? Absolutely. It's how Ange plays football. Right?
The only way we'll score 2 goals over there is if we bring Nin-Chan back. I know you would love to see that, Esther. I know you would love to see that. But again,
I would start with Sorrow. I would put him in front.
As a player in there somewhere. As a player in there somewhere. But again, bring me Monty. I don't know if it came across back to that whole TV and live view kind of thing. Did the physicality of their team actually come across? Because I was so impressed. They were. I know it's like the whole Viking cliche, you know that, Hector, but I don't know if you're paid. But they were like massive. They were like, every one of them looked 6'2", massive shoulders. I mean, they were this swatting.
Racist.
It's compliments. Racist compliments by Etans.
I think I mentioned in the WhatsApp, we always fucking struggle against those Northern European, Scandinavian teams, and that physicality is a big point of it. I was watching, going, there's 3 or 4 players there you take immediately. Guy Solbakken was brilliant. Their captain Frentes or Sentis or funny name, he was fucking outstanding.
That's racist. See, that's racist. That wasn't racist. He's too racist. Funny name.
I can't remember the guy's fucking name. But these are boys 6'2", 6'3". The guy Pellegrino who scored. The Dutch guy that they signed on a fucking free from the 10th place team. I'm looking at them going, would they enhance us? Oh, fuck yeah. But then you go back into, well, really, would they in our system? Nah. So we just struggle against these big physical teams. Right, and they really did look like they were just fucking swatting.
Right, you just remind me, apologies, Ralph, I'll bring you in a minute, but Monty, you just remind me of something there, because a lot of people have been commenting on social media, etc., of, well, you have to remember, Bodø Glimt are 3/4 years into this project, and just distant to 6 months. And they're kind of turning into like a compliment for Ange, as if we're on the same road, so you can't expect to beat them, and you're kind of going, well, wait a minute, we can appreciate what Bodø Glimt's done, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to say we're the same and we're going to beat them. That kind of way, I just thought that was a bit of a strange kind of take on it.
There is something in it though, Desi. Like everyone has said from Postecoglou took the job, it's in his 2nd season when the players have really bought in.
Well, that was you that said that.
No. There's also there's also the Bodø Glimt philosophy of selling 3/4 players every summer.
That's the Celtic box dreaming.
So which 4 players are you going to sell in the summer, Mr. Lawwell? Can you tell us at the moment? David Turnbull will be one of them, right? Who's the rest? Not me.
Who would we shed? Well, we're going to get rid of a lot of the fringe, you would imagine, this summer. So, Sorrow will go.
How dare you?
Aye, Barkas, but that's right. Okay, no, come on, wait, I'll come back.
But can I just, Desi, just
no, like, bring Ralph in. Ralph's not said much. He's eating his
fucking munchie box, right? But just I just think sometimes with Celtic fans, and I kind of get it, we're in a bubble, especially here and us and name and everything else. But guys, if we lose a game and we did things wrong, we deserve criticism. Don't feel as if you've got to go the other direction and overcomplicate and no.
Sorry,
but accept criticism.
That's so apologies, but that sets up a perfect question for Ralph, right? You just mean Ralph. Do you think what Hector's mentioning there? I'm wondering, is the overreaction of some Celtic fans just a fear after what we witnessed last year? It's still an overhang of this could all go tits up. As soon as a crack comes, it could all be a crack could become a crevice, then it all falls off the cliff. Do you think there's a kind of underlying worry there that this could all go tits up, especially league-wise? As soon as that door opens, that door of uncertainty opens, worry's going to kick it right down.
The door of uncertainty?
I just made that up, like it. The door I seen them supporting always Fast Flight Junior.
Is that you, Hugh Keevans?
I've been reading Edgar Allan Poe again. Hey, Ralph,
it comes down to there's a lot of disappointment last night. No, there was a lot of disappointment last night. There's a lot of frustration. And there is kind of that thing that we keep losing to teams like Bodø, to teams like Cluj, Ferencvaros, teams that people use this excuse that we've got much more money than them, we're paying higher wages, so therefore we must be better, or we should be better. And that's nonsense. The point is, I think last night you could tell they were up for that game. They haven't played football for months. They've had a good season. That's the other thing as well. We're talking about this third-tier tournament. If you're still in Europe at the knockout stages, you're having a good season. At the beginning of when it's the group stages or the qualifiers, you had a good season last season. If you're still in Europe now, you're having a good season this season. And that even applies to that lot over the river. They're having a good season, whichever way you look at it. They're still riding high.
But Ralph, we get knocked out of two tournaments. We got knocked out of two tournaments. We're still in Europe.
Yeah.
We're
having a good season.
How's that a good European season?
We're having a good domestic season, should I say?
But that's different.
So we're playing
Europe.
Right. Yeah. We're having a good domestic season. Whatever we're doing is.
How does that equate? If you're still in Europe, you're having a good season, but a domestic season. How does that work?
Your team's playing well. It's winning more games than it's losing, which is kind of fundamental to having a successful team. And Bodø have just come off the back of 2 successive titles or whatever. They've had a break in Spain, I think the commentator said.
Been a piss-up for 2 months, Ralph.
Neil Lennon's no their manager. They've got a proper manager. Oh, there goes Monty.
Monty's away now. Here he goes. Okay. Fucking, he's my pal. He's my pal.
Who had 51 minutes in their lover grenade to annoy Monty?
He's going to mention Ronnie Della now, isn't he? Ralph's going to talk about Ronnie Della being magic now, isn't he? Here we go. Fucking
right,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Last couple of 3 weeks, all they thought about is coming to Celtic Park and stopping us scoring early. They got a bonus, they scored early. They set out to stop us doing what we do, and they've done it. Next week it'll be a wee bit different. They'll not have their goalkeeper. They'll not actually know how to deal with the game. They're 3 up. It'll be a completely different kettle of fish. We were frustrated last week. We might be frustrated next week. We might be disappointed again.
They don't get a keeper next week.
I think they'll drag one in off the streets or something. I think in Norway you're only allowed one in the squad, so they'll need to sign somebody else. The thing is, next week it'll be a different game for them. They're ahead in the tie. They want to stay ahead. We're behind. We'll need to hit the ground running.
But that's really interesting.
To go back to what Hector says, it's no disaster. It's not the end of the world, and we can't go about just shouting at people. We need to have a look at what went on. I'm hoping that at Lennox Town they had a look at what happened, and they'll deal with the mistakes. They'll deal with what was a poor setup. They'll deal with what was maybe a poor attitude towards the game. Not necessarily a poor attitude, but certainly not as good an attitude as what Bodø put on.
I think it was Angie's tactics rather than
Right. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfectly phrased there, Ralph. I won't only touch on the fact that you're talking about how Bodø had get ready to stop us playing your game, because I don't think we had prepared to stop them playing their game. But what you just touched on there, as in the attitude. So, Hector, have we maybe had a wee fallout from the hype and the highs of the Rangers game, as in party night, the disco lights. There seemed to be a wee bit of that in the stadium. This brings us back to compare being in the stadium to watching on the TV. Ralph was asking about what was the atmosphere like last night, and there wasn't really an atmosphere to really talk about, was there? Apart from the first 5 minutes.
But let's get through the chronological order, because we pumped them, great night. Went to Fir Park, were tremendous. And Fir Park's been Fir Park, very late. No, but it's important, right? Because we pumped them, then Wednesday at Pittodrie, first half was on toast. But second half were pish. And we struggled to fucking, hold on to win 3-2. We were coasting 2-0. And then they bullied us the second half. Raith Rovers were pish. Ange went ballistic, as we've all seen on social media and his own accounts. He was fucking laying into the players for a bad attitude. He was really upset with them. And that seemed to carry over to some degree last night. I think it was more about the setup last night rather than about the players put it in.
Even from a fan's perspective, even from like, do we think we were all a wee bit complete? I don't like, there was no urgency in the crowd or that, even like until we scored.
How can you blame the fans for anything?
I'm not blaming the fans. I'm asking what do you think it was like? Because this is what the question Ralph asked last night. Remember, how was it last night? And I replied, I thought it was all very complacent. We all turned up with a wee bit of kind of thinking it was going to be
confidence. No, hold on. We've all got confidence.
What I meant by atmosphere was at the same level of intimidation from the crowd.
But
the disco lights. Did they leave them in the dark?
You know the answer. No.
What I'm saying is,
come on.
Yeah. Why are we treating that lot with more respect
than
treating a top-level European opponent?
We've not played.
Why did we not turn the lights off? Why did we not put the focus on ourselves? Why did we not try to intimidate and put a wee bit of fear into them?
We've
put
not
that
played
wee bit of doubt that distracts them enough so that they're not concentrating on stopping us for the first 5 10.
We've not played them at home with fans for 2 years, right? For 2 years, right? So the build up to the game against them to go top of the league, which as we've all spoke about, the objective this year is to win the league, right?
Yeah.
If you're coming from miles behind, to suddenly within a matter of 2 weeks, they've dropped points after the kind of break to go top of the league. It built to a fucking crescendo, right? It's just no comparable. I'm sorry, it's just no comparable.
No, but
right?
In my opinion. No, but you made a good point there.
But should we not have built on what we did to them and used it again?
It's not the same.
Exactly. I think that's a very good point, Hector. The fact that it was the first time.
No, you're right. It's not the same, but we should try.
And it was to go top of the league. But that also kind of ties in with the question we've been asking tonight. How important is this Europa Conference?
It's important, in my opinion, Desi. Hold on, but this is not just tonight. We've spoken this now for a few months. I think Monty alluded to it earlier on. I think European football for us is about building kind of stepping stones for next season, right? Ideally. Because Ange, you're going to get bad results. That's football, for fuck's sake. Jock Steen's team lost Partick Thistle 4-1 in the League Cup final back in 1970. No, but their greatest ever team get pumped to a fucking, let's be honest, a mediocre team 4-1, right? We're going to get bad results, but it's how Ange reacts to that. Do I think Ange is the right man for the job? I think he's been fantastic. He's been absolutely brilliant. However, my point is this, right? Let's just put it in perspective. We get beat, deserved to get beat last night, but he's doing a great job. The objective's the league. However, I'd love to see us keep progressing in Europe to build for next season, right? That's my opinion. That's what I think.
So over to Monty then, Monty. So I've just wrote the words lessons learned here, right, with a question mark. But if we tie that into what Hector's alluding to there regards learning in Europe, and you also say you would like to see is striding. So if we go for milestone in the league, right, so if we win the league, what's the lessons learned from tonight? Go and get a bigger left back? What do you think would be on Ange's longer term, short to medium longer term objectives here? He's looking towards July, Champions League. What's the plan then for Europe?
Did we have, was it 2 or 3 players made a European debut last night? Maeda, O'Reilly.
Carter Vickers.
No,
probably Starfelt.
He's been there. No, maybe one of the subs.
Who do we bring off the bench?
Scales, maybe.
Scales?
On the bench, I mean.
Hatati.
Sorry.
I was initially wondering about leaving Gucci. We never put Gucci in the squad, I don't think.
Oh, we couldn't.
That's what I'm saying, but that could have been another holding midfielder or tackling midfielder.
So we'd 3 players who came in last night, 2 started, who hadn't played a European game for Celtic before. So there's always mitigations in this. McGregor's comments after the game, I thought, were really telling. That we showed naivety, especially after we scored the goal. And you can't do that. So I think there's a collective sort of team learning in that for a lot of these boys that are new to it. They don't, Rogic, like Forrest, came on for 10 minutes. Realistically, McGregor's the only one with significant European experience who started that game last night for Celtic. Okay, Hart, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But not for Celtic. So there's a growing into it, and I don't know how you would measure that, Desi, other than get a result next week. I think going into next year, the whole intent for the club has to be that we get better and more comfortable playing the system that Postecoglou wants us to play. We get better players in the next window, and now the squad is packed out, because his comment last week as well, like after Raith, was this squad's nowhere near the levels that I wanted to be at, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Really, really big markers from the manager and the captain. So the ultimate goal, as it always is to win the league. But it would just be a fuck, really, to go out to, which is a good team. They're a good team, but we should be beating them. We should be at their level and should be beating them.
Okay. Well, I think come next Thursday, 8 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. or something, if we're out, I think most people will forget it by Friday morning, to be brutally honest.
And I would agree, ironically, with everything I've just said, I would agree with you.
I was just saying, this is you said there. Did we not concede a goal shortly after scoring already this season in Europe? Or was it this something in the back of my mind that kind of had that?
Was it better?
Why give up so easily, Desi?
Why, well, next week? Because I honestly don't think that team got a second gear last night against us. I thought they were by far a better team than us last night, and I can accept it when people say, "Oh, but I don't think they played to their maximum." I think they've got an argument.
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about us. Why should we accept that come next Friday morning if we lose, then so be it?
But I think it's a case of moving forward, no looking back. We move forward. We go, like for instance, your take. We move forward and we go, right, the lesson to learn here is we clearly need a better left back in Europe. If we want to progress in Europe, we need a better left. That left back will get us the SPL title, and then they can become a squad left back. And then we know that kind of learn a lesson, move on, look forward. Andy's swing is drive forward. His team's drive forward. And that's what I'm saying. We're not going to have any hang-ups. We're not like, in the past, we've always been, we should have beat that mob, and we've always had a wee kind of European hang-up. We can't afford a European hang-up this year. We've just got to kick out, wipe it off and move on. That's it. I'm trying to think that.
But do you think we should beat this with the squad we've got? We should beat them.
Beat a lot of teams, shouldn't we?
No, but I'm talking about last night. Right? Ange's built a team. He's done really well since Christmas in particular. The whole season, in particular, since we've come back to Christmas. He's reinforced the squad with some really good players. Should we not expect a better performance and to progress? Listen, hold on. To progress past the team, rather than accept, we're out. But hold on a minute. But should we not be beating this team?
Well, that's the whole reason for writing the questions. Listen, man. But I've repeatedly said I honestly believe we're currently only at 55% of this team actually playing. Like, but we've already highlighted quite a few times how we've been fading in games, how we've not been starting. We've not started every game at 100 mile an hour. Even if it is only Raith Rovers, we should go out and get the game done in the first 30 minutes. So there's obviously problems still there that need to be ironed out. We're all willing to give Ange the time and the effort and the money. We'd like to, especially come the summer, we'd want to see the money invested in the team and let him go and buy quality. He doesn't need to buy another 4 Matt O'Reillys for £6 million. He should be allowed to buy one £6 million player if that's what he wants and he thinks that's what we need. No, that's what I'm saying. So I'm quite happy to dismiss. I'm not just going, forget it, I couldn't care less. Obviously, it hurts and that annoys, and we should. But you'd like to think the next time we play that team, we'll have learned how to beat that team. Think it that way. You know what I mean?
Aye, next Thursday.
Aye, but that's the way to do it. Okay, I'm quite happy.
I know what you're saying, and you're looking
next week.
You're looking maybe at the long-term thing, which is maybe something that would, if we're doing it, you sometimes think that maybe the players are doing it or maybe the manager's doing it. The fact is, we're in the knockout stages of a European tournament, and we shouldn't let it go lightly. We certainly shouldn't go down with that fight. And I'm just thinking maybe we need to adapt a wee bit more. I don't think, for instance, that McCarthy and Beaton would have allowed them to progress towards us the way that the kind of lightweight midfield did last night. And maybe we need to adapt a wee bit more. It's all right having a game plan and having a style, but sometimes a wee tweak here and there, which is what you were saying earlier on in the season, to be fair, Hector. A wee tweak here and there at a different level would bring results.
Yeah,
I just don't think we should. I've got this terrible fear that we'll end up like the Rodgers team and get into the Champions League and playing one of the top sides and just getting run over the top of. And that,
never accept mediocrity, Ralph, right? I think we're all agreed with that. But what sticks in my craw is that Bravchik67 tweet last night. We're losing on average 3 goals a game. No against the best in Europe. 3 goals a game. Come on.
Yeah. That's
Come on.
No, Hector.
You would think that the manager's priority.
You scored 11 goals in the last 3 games.
Come on. We can't do it.
It's an overriding problem, and something needs to be done about that.
Monty and I are standing in McDonald's laughing at you vegetarians. No, I mean.
No, but McDonald's do veggie meals, don't you?
Yes, plant-based. But that's the thing. Like, you always knew Ange's. This is the conundrum of the Ange. Loving the Ange team, you're going to have to love the goals going in as well as the goals
against good teams, not against teams who are.
It's going to happen.
I'll give you the quote.
Hector, you made a good point, because that's where, if you get one weakness in the team, goals will come. So the point, ultimately, Ange is going to have to get the correct player in every position. And I think that's the ultimate goal for start of next season.
So Monty me spoke about, I think, the last podcast, right? Where amongst this and amongst that, even we're winning, and we pumped such a high the last podcast, right? We're still not high, to be honest with you, right? Make it sound like it, because we're being critical, I think hopefully constructive about areas for improvement. But I think we both highlighted this thing. Of our 4 defenders, right, the left back and the left centre back, that's 50% of that back 4. If Ange can improve that to be the equivalent of Carter Vickers and Juranovic, but hold on. But that's, for me, my opinion, that's what it is. That's a massive improvement, which defensively is a massive improvement, but should hopefully mean goals, because the first 2 goals came from the left-hand side defence.
It wasn't it? Nothing to do with Starfelt.
No, but
Starfelt had a very good game last night.
The left back, hold on, Desi. The first goal with the left back and the centre back was a 1-2 inside the 2 of them, right? The second goal walked past the left back, right? Come on. You've seen
none of the goals are anything to do with Starfelt. Watch the goal. Starfelt's covering Starfelt's position. Taylor jumps in like an idiot.
Right,
and leaves a big massive space.
So even take your point.
Like McGregor in the middle of the park. It can't be everywhere.
But even taking your point, right? That's the left back then. It's just 25%.
Exactly.
Right. However, we know through watching throughout the season that Starfelt's not as good as Carter Vickers. He's probably a good squad player, good backup player, right? But the 2 of them to be replaced by the guys the equivalent of Juranovic and Carter Vickers, that's a massive improvement for Celtic next season.
Yes.
Massive.
I would just like, okay, that's a good, that brings me on to something else, but I would just be wary if I was you, because you may find yourself drowning in rosy wine / Prosecco come the summer when Carter Vickers buggers off and you're left with Starfelt.
Oh, no. We all know you want to shag Carter Vickers, right?
Like the defence of Welsh and Starfelt taking us into the qualifiers, right. And then we can go, what's your expectations? So
the first signing Ange should do, if he can, is Carter Vickers.
I don't know. As much as I love Carter Vickers as your big rock at the back, for an Ange team, Ange is crying out for a centre-half who can bring the ball forward. Starfelt can play a pass. Starfelt's done well passing the ball forward, but we are crying out for a Virgin van Dijk striding defender.
As you get for $2 million every weekend.
But of course, that's why I'm saying we should back a manager instead of buying 4 Matt O'Reillys. If Cumbie buy one guy at $6 million, if he's going to make that, is the difference that you're highlighting there. if that guy can plug that difference, we're going to have to start looking at these big problems and saying, back a guy. But if Ange goes as a guy in Japan for £500,000, go and get him. That's fine.
Absolutely.
I'm trusting Ange to.
The point I'm trying to make is this, right? That the left back and the left centre back compared to the other two, there's massive scope for improvement.
Yes.
Massive scope for improvement. We cannot see it. And what that would do is, it means less goals, hopefully, defensively getting lost, but also keeping possession, right? It's a big improvement. So there's scope there we can all see, hopefully.
Right. So on you go, Monty, you get something to say.
Carl Starfelt was 4.6 million, yeah?
Yeah.
So he's the most expensive purchase under Ange, yeah?
Yep.
Well, he's the most expensive purchase in Ange's team.
Kyogo,
because he came really as Ange came. I don't think I wouldn't know if he was a definite Ange purchase, if you know what I mean.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Here we go.
I'm just saying.
Here we go.
Let me go and check the timeline here.
Things up. Here we go.
Let me go and check that timeline.
Fucking hell, man.
Carry on, Monty.
I don't think we're going to see those £6 million, £7 million purchases under Ange Postecoglou. I just don't. I think we will see better players fill the squad slots that we will make this summer, which will be about 5. And then we'll start to see his system getting better and the players that we have at their disposal being interchangeable. So I don't think, it's not that we can't, but those £6 million, £7 million purchases, and even the £9 million for Edouard, we're all based on a model that allowed you to turn players over.
I don't think that bothers us. I think Ange, if Ange knows the market, you can get a guy like Kyogo or whoever, or Hatate for a fraction. Great.
Aye, but my point is, I don't think we'll see a desire for one player instead of 3. You know.
Yeah.
I don't think
that also brings us back, Monty, to the Bodø Glimt model of getting to winning the league and then immediately selling 3/4-year players. I mean, so we're going to have to start the old murder your darlings kind of idea, right? You're going to have to let him go. But so this brings me, I wanted to make a point really for Ralph, which need to highlight today. Hector had a nice wee Twitter love-in on this one. And it was regards Ralph Karamoko Dembele on the bench last night. I was really shocked to see that, to be brutally honest.
Well, he's obviously doing something right to get promoted to the bench, but there's still no sign of a new contract, is there? So,
exactly.
Surprising. Unless, of course, he's kind of pledged his future and he said, yeah, I'm going to stay and the details need to be ironed out or whatever. To go back to what you were saying about Ange buying in defenders, I think he's probably aware of the problems at the back. And if there was somebody in Japan or in Australia or whatever that he felt could do a job, I think we'd have already got him by now. So I don't think he's identified anybody yet. I think we might be stuck with what we've got for a while. You know,
I seen
it keeps coming back. We keep losing goals. We're not dominating even our own corners. We don't have any height. We should be scoring a lot more goals for set pieces up front. We're not. And I honestly think that last month, if he knew of somebody that could fill that void, would have got him in.
Do you think so? Because when you think about your last podcast, right, you got the 3 guys from the J League in pretty much before the 1st of January, which was unusual for Celtic. Then he brought in young striker for the Irish League, who will go to the B team initially, right? I know it was the big money, but still he signed him. And then he got O'Reilly in. That was 5 players, which, you know, was for us done nice and early. You know, there was no last minute, 30 minutes to go, the transfer deadline. I think he's done well. I think this summer's, I think Monty in particular has been highlighting this for the last several podcasts, that come this summer will be his 3rd one, where he looks to really just emphasise the 2 or 3 final positions for him that gives him his team. In effect, his team. Yeah?
And that's why I think being constructive about where we are at the minute has to always be took in context. So it might feel like we're giving him a wee bit of an easy ride, to Desi's earlier point, but we're not really. where we are from where we were in July is a fucking different planet.
But you love Neil Lennon.
What's that?
You love Neil Lennon, didn't you?
Well, I can only talk about him as the most successful.
I'm pulling your leg. Fucking move on. Move on. Back to Ange.
Ralph made me think of something there regards something about investment.
Oh, he's back for the bar. Here he comes.
Sorry, no, but investing in defence. But you could clearly see last night, and this is a bit of compares to a bit of joke that we've had about Hart being the first line of attack. But it's like the old Henrik Larsson, he's the first line of defence. And like Abada last night, like that left back was just walking by him as if he wasn't there. So you can't really keep citing the defence's fault if they're allowing guys to stride up with a challenge and name midfield with a challenge. So there's a lot of problems all over the pitch.
But that's just the variables.
You can't just say it's Greg Taylor's fault.
No, but that's just the variables of football, isn't it? You know, somebody gets beat at times, but he beat Abada. Hold on, but he beat Abada. But that was 60. That was 60 yards behind where we lost the goal.
Aye, right? But that guy. So, but again, like before we have been buzzing in packs up at their box and not letting teams come out, etc. Last night we had none of that. It was totally. Maeda was stranded. His cell was he was trying to cover 30 yards either side, getting his cell knackered. Let's be a bit long, and then being totally. Jota was invisible. He wasn't covering anybody. So there's a lot of errors that need to be addressed. This tactic wise as well as personnel wise.
Can I just be blunt? Was it maybe just an off night?
Well, no. Well, is it? Well, that's right. Okay, so there's a question. Right, let's have a quick poll. Do we think it was an off night compared to some recent? How many off night stroke off halves stroke off have we had? Aberdeen, the wee phasing it in Aberdeen. Is that a common thing, or do we always think it was just one of the things last night?
It could just be.
We're just in a lull.
Just be the players only used to playing 2 games a week.
Last night could have just been the outworkings of that lull that we're in. Everything was geared towards getting back to the top of the league. There's a guy who writes. It's a former GAA player. He's a barrister. A guy called Joe Brawley. Played for Derry. He won the All Ireland with Derry. He's an interesting character. Does really, really good. He used to be a commentator on RTE. They sacked him for being a wee bit too controversial. And actually, he's not. He just speaks his mind. And he used to talk about this great phrase in Gaelic football. It applies to any professional or top level sport. He talked about the flow and ebb of psychic energy. It's a fucking great phrase. And it happens in patterns in games. And it also happens in wider patterns throughout a season. And it's not just where you are structurally and tactically. You know, you can get all the luck you want. But this notion of psychic energy, the mental aspect of top level sport is really, really important. And it happens, as I say, in microcosms of 90 minutes to a week to a month. And right now, the pendulum's kind of against us, I think. I think we peaked going top of the league. We're seeing the inevitable swing back from that. And last night, I think, could be...
Why is it inevitable? Sorry, Monty, why is it inevitable?
I think when you burn that hot, it's like Hector, it's like putting the foot down on the engine. You can't keep running it, it'll blow up. So what happens is you have to cool off. And subconsciously you cool off. So subconsciously the edge goes, because you've achieved it, you're at the mountain. The second mountain is still to come. But you need to recover in order to go for the second mountain. So it's this notion that you can't dominate a team completely for 90 minutes. You just can't. You fucking can't. Otherwise,
no, not 90 minutes. It's not about 90 minutes domination, right?
So in that set list of objectives, the primary target, the focus, the goal, the live all, be all, do not give up until you get this, becomes this embodiment of what you do every day. And I think we condensed January and all our fucking effort into getting to the top of the league. I really do. I think we really, really went for it. And you manage teams. You know how it is, how you motivate people, how you keep going to the well. Even when you're hurt, you keep going to the well. It's fucking tough. And then you get it. And then the natural Like endorphin, fucking
adrenaline crash.
Everything crashes. So I think
that might explain why he came out and said we've won nothing.
We've won, and we haven't. Absolutely.
Like he was now saying what he was going to be saying to the players.
But the same
because
fella,
of what had happened.
But the same fella caught himself and got himself off the pitch really quickly when he realised he got caught up in it too. It's the last one on the pitch, taking out the bullets.
Yeah.
So there's a reality check going on around here, I think, all the time. I hope we're at the end. Sunday's fucking massive. Sunday could see a swing for us.
Come on, you hope it did D, come on.
All right, I'm going to come to that. But
doesn't matter.
Monty, let me just go back to Ralph, because Ralph, you often use the phrase in your diary, climbing the mountain to fall over a molehill. That kind of idea. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So again, do you think the big news of the week obviously has been nothing to do with Celtic. It's been Mark McGhee getting the Dundee job. But he's got to sit in the stand at the Celtic game in the next 6 games for Dundee. So that was a really good appointment. Well done, Gordon Strachan, for that advice.
Thankfully, he's still not. Oh, he is still involved at Celtic, isn't he?
No.
He's still.
No one knows. No one ever knows to that report.
He had a 3-month consultancy gig, presented his report. He's finished.
Yeah, but him and his 3 sons with their soccer academy. What can we possibly do for you, Celtic? Leave it with us.
He's done all right for Dundee. He's got him Lee Griffiths and Mark McGhee. They must love him up there.
They're no relegated. There's only second in the league. I actually thought they must have been bottom of the league, to be honest, when that McPake gets sacked. But they were second in the league. But judging by...
They were just in a wee run as well. I think they won 2 or 3 in a row.
Hector's got a fresh bottle.
And then they sacked him.
They're in a wee run. They beat Peterhead, and apparently they weren't very good. When you looked at the Dundee fans' comments, there was not one of them basically saying we wish we'd kept McPake, even though they're second bottom of the league, etc. They were all quite... they all accepted change was needed, and it should have been done a wee bit earlier. I see Aberdeen talking about change. I see Aberdeen's been given permission to speak to the next Celtic manager, Jim Goodwin. That was quite interesting.
But see, getting back to Dundee, I watched their game against sad bastard that I am against Peterhead on, was it Monday or Tuesday night? Monday night. It was. They're fucking dreadful.
That's exactly.
Peterhead actually, I know it was 3-0. Peterhead played them off the pitch. Had a Stonewall penalty at 1-0. Dundee scored 3 chances, 3 goals. If we can't beat Dundee by at least 2, right, we're in trouble. Honestly. Let's not pussyfoot about this, right? We should beat them convincingly.
Right. Sorry, Hector. No, I wasn't meaning to cut you. That's a very good point, because again, that's the next question, right? It's getting very tight. It's still a point, etc. Surely we should be hoping for at least 4 or 5 playing at home against anybody in the SPFL, regardless of maybe Rangers and Hearts. We should be hoping. Remember, these days we hope for a good gubbing. Ralph always hopes for 7-0. We need to get back on the goal scoring trail. I mean, 11 goals, not that until last night. We were very weak and we didn't seem to have any attack whatsoever. So it'll be interesting to see what happens come Sunday.
But we've been on the goal. We've actually scored a lot of goals, right?
So then, as Monty, alluding to Monty's, we've hit a wall, we've crashed. So it's a case of how do we recover. So what do you think?
Wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. I don't agree we've hit a one crash. Wait a minute.
I'm talking the attack. Right, so we're totally blunt. We're totally blunt in attack last night.
No, but wait a minute. That's one game. Now, hold on. We can't. Let's build a pattern, right? So you're right. Last night we didn't create too much. That happens, right? The game before we were poor, get 4 goals. No, it's Raith Rovers. Game before
14 in the last 5 games.
Right, aye. So there we go. 3 goals away, Aberdeen, 4 away, Motherwell.
So I was going to say, what do you think the lineup will be? Does it go back for Giakoumakis, or do we stick with Maeda?
1 or 2 tweaks. Nothing more than that.
The end of last night's game.
It's gone well. It's gone well. You don't tweak too much. It's gone well.
So what's your team then?
I would. You know what? I think Juranovic obviously had. He wasn't too well. Let's put it that way. Right, he missed the last couple of games. It wasn't an injury. It wasn't too well. Up front, it's probably tweak it just a wee touch. I would bring Giakoumakis back in. I'd start Maeda, my opinion. Maeda to the side of him on one of the flanks, and I'd tweak the midfield. I'd bring in.
Are we dropping Abada or Jota?
I would one of the two of them. If I'm being honest about it, I think Jota probably deserves just to get a wee, let's call it a rest, squad rotation, right? Hatate should probably start as well. Not too much, 2 or 3 changes. But listen, we should beat Dundee with at least 2 goals, right? You know what I mean? Let's not overcomplicate it. We should beat Dundee convincingly, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking, just as we graze on that, because I hadn't had a chance to. Just looking at the stats from last night. We had 16 shots.
Yeah.
6 were on target.
Oh, come on, don't go.
No, just hear me out, right?
Oh, God.
8-4.
We had 12 corners. They'd fuck all with any of them. And 63% of the ball. They scored with 3 out of 4 shots on goal.
I seen that last night, Monty. Honestly, it's pish. Don't
I'm just saying that in all of our analysis where we believe we were really poor.
No. Starfelt and Carter Vickers had probably half our possession last night.
Possibly, but they didn't give us 16. They didn't create 16 shots on goal.
Hector, that's one of your, like, on Twitter, that's one of your main complaints. All the analytics guys, they come up with things like
and to get 12 corners means we must have been attacking.
No,
Carter Vickers and Starfelt's passing didn't create 16 shots.
Exactly.
So see these shots. Let's go through the. Sorry, Daisy. I know you're going to an ending, but see these 16 shots, right? Apart from the goal, there's one, and Jota's shot on the 75th minute, which I think was the first real one the keeper saved. These other 14 shots. Can somebody talk me through these other 14 shots?
I can remember poorly executed ones by Abada where he scuffed it with his left foot.
Whereabouts were these shots?
Yeah, but McGregor and Forrest both had shots as well.
First half, a couple of shots from outside the box.
Right, outside the box.
Well, that may be can you explain it in XG, guys? Can you explain it in XG?
Just if it can explode Hector's head. My point is, in as poor as we perceive us to be last night.
What's the perception?
No, well, okay. In as poor as our analysis states last night was.
Oh, come on, fuck.
Yeah.
Call it as it is. Don't believe them across the side.
Let's put this to bed. Monty, let's put this to bed simply. Football is not played on paper. Know what I mean? That is and again, because Ange, this was a bit of a worry for me last night, because in Ange's comments, he was saying, yeah, they were clinical in their finishing, we weren't. And he almost went down the road of starting to quote like defences. No, that way, we had more possession. It goes back to what I said at the beginning.
A couple of times the ball was good, but the forward moved too quickly. We were offside. An under-hit pass, an over-hit pass, very, very fine margins. And at that level, this is how you get punished.
Underground, overground, wombling free by Ralph Malf there. Yeah, right, okay, right. So Dundee, we hopefully we'll beat Dundee, right? With happy Mark McGhee in the main stand next to me. That'll be interesting.
God bless Gordon Strachan.
Exactly, what a job. Monty, okay, looking towards next Thursday then. I think I'm in a minority of one here. So how do you think next Thursday's game is going to go? Are you going to go for a decisive result, or are you going to play the Hector, I'll sit in the fence and get a sore arse approach?
We'll get through in penalties.
I think we'll just go for it. I think we'll go flat out from the start. And I think...
Unlike last night.
I think if we get an early goal, I think we'll be all right.
What does that mean?
It means that you were wrong.
Does that mean we're going to win or going to get beat? What does that mean?
I said if we get an early goal, we'll win.
Okay.
So if we don't get an early goal, we're not going to win. That's what you're saying?
No. If we don't get an early goal, they'll put it to bed.
All right.
They're
okay, give us a score prediction. Monty, 3-1 for Celtic. We got any extra time? Get my money's worth.
No. I think it'll be something. I think we'll score more than 2 if we get that early goal.
What does that mean?
It means that we will score more than 2 if we score.
Are we going to get through? Are we going to get beat? What does that mean?
We'll be okay. Let's leave it at that. We'll be okay.
Fucking hell! Make a fucking decision.
So Ralph, what are you going for?
That's why you aren't at the politics sector.
Well, we normally lose 3 goals in Europe, so it'll need to be 5-3. and we'll win 5-3 in penalties. There you are.
Hold on,
We always lose.
Oh,
we
if
always
we win
lose goals.
5-3,
in Europe.
we'll win
I don't
next
think
week.
he's
Away
got an
goals
idea
don't
of how to
count,
stop
Desi.
that happening.
Oh, sorry,
I think
60, sorry.
we'll be a wee bit
3-1.
more, a wee bit luckier. I think maybe with some of the passes, some of the movement. I think we'll score plenty. I think it'll be edge of the seat. I think it'll be penalties, and as usual, I'll be right.
When was the last time Celtic scored 5 goals?
For a point.
You know what I mean? For all the romanticism we have of Angie's free-flowing football, you know what I mean? How often do we really put teams to the sword?
You're a fucking downer, Daisy.
I'm just like mixing it because I honestly don't understand.
You're a fucking
I don't understand what you watched last night, which you.
No. I criticised Ange, but you're a fucking downer.
I don't understand which team you were watching last night. If you.
No, me, I'm you, but you.
No, but you still
fucking
think,
depressing. By the way, fucking depressing.
So Hector, do you think you'll beat them next week?
Somebody needs to take that Prosecco off him. He's going to go off him once.
Exactly. He's getting Aldi. He's getting good stuff to. Liverpool must have been shut.
I think we'll win 4-2 next week, and it'll go to extra time, and I don't know what will happen after that. Is that fair enough?
What the fuck does that mean? Are we going to go through or are we not?
Are we okay?
Wait a minute, I give you a fucking result. I give you a score. What more do you want? Rather than if we score in the first 20 minutes, I might get a stoner. What does that mean?
No, we're all that Prosecco, you won't we? Right, well, I'll go for a nice.
We might win 2-0 with a
I'll go for a
fantastic
nice
assured
easy-
defensive performance. As well as
I'll
that,
go for
we
a
play
nice
better away from
3-1
in Europe. We have done for a while.
to them because I think they'll just come out.
Sorry, Daisy, what did you say there?
3-1 to them again.
You're such a downer, by the way. Such a
I'll tell you,
downer.
I'll be quite happy.
Honestly, you're Hugh Keems of this fucking podcast.
I'll be quite
by the
happy
way.
for us to come back.
You criticise pure Hugh, and you've became the Hugh Keems of this podcast.
I am just no delusional. I am just no wearing my Ange tinted glasses like all yous.
No, I criticised Ange. Let's be fair, I criticised Ange, right? But I think we can beat this mob next week. I genuinely do, right? This isn't fucking Leverkusen. I think we can beat this mob.
This has been a party political broadcast by Optimism CSC.
I'll be interested to hear this on replay because the last couple of minutes have sounded like you turn the dial on medium wave and you just keep hitting different fucking channels.
I think we've picked up a neighbour's
It's gone into
CB.
surrealism.
I think neighbours only CB again. Right, okay,
Daisy, I think you've jumped the ship. I think you're going to work for Radio Clyde or something. Honestly, what's happening here?
I'm available for Radio Scotland. I've got my brown robes all buffed up. I'm ready to come. Just let me know you need me. Right, so thanks very much, folks, for bearing with us. Hector's almost finished the second bottle, so we did well to last that long. Thanks for staying with us. Hopefully this is recorded. I'm just looking up here. Somehow it says we've been on for 2 hours, but I know we haven't. Half an hour that was just a Scottish independent.
Oh, wait a minute, what's the prediction for Sunday's game?
Dundee, I'll go for 4-1. 2-2. I know you all had to pause there. I know it's that.
Sorry, I was just trying to get your mood.
Just to be clear on this.
Okay, Ralph, what's your prediction for Sunday's game?
3-0.
And
3-0, either at the very beginning of the game or at the very end.
Monty, if Celtic score early, what's your prediction for the game?
I think if we get a wee favour at Tannadice later on during the day, we'll do all right.
Yeah, that'll be a big. Charlie McGrew's back, by the way, on Sunday. I can just see him flinging a free kick in the top corner. That'd be lovely. A wee one each up there for them. That would be nice.
We'll 2-0 and we'll take our foot off the gas just to consider.
And then we've got a big game next weekend at Easter Road, so that'll be interesting. Up against Maloney's Hibs again, so that'll be good. And Hector, you keep alluding to this. Just keep plugging away in the league again. Just get these results. One game, Lena Martell, CSC, one game at a time.
Sweet Jesus.
All right, this leaves it for me, Desi Monty, Fang Hector Bandido, Monty C. Burns, and Ralph Mall. Thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thanks, lads.
Cheers.
Thank you, Desi, for your optimism. I appreciate that.
Yeah, as always, realism.
A little ray of sunshine.
No, I mean, little Mr. Delusional's over there.
He's overtaken Ralph. It's Reverend I Am Jolly.
You'll find me sitting in the corner of Baird's Bar any Tuesday complaining about the storms, so that should be fine. Okay, folks, and as always, thank you very much for listening. As always, please subscribe and like where possible, and tell your friends. And if you have anything to comment, please let us know at etims.contact@gmail.com. And please look out for Ralph Mal's daily Etims diary at etims.net. All right, folks, thanks very much. Good night.